Hi, welcome back to the Industrial Automation Insider podcast. My name is Matt Van Bogart, and I'm part of the Zebra Machine Vision business. Today, we have a couple guests that are going to share some interesting perspectives of the machine vision industry and market. Both guests are from a Zebra partner, GrafTech Imaging. So I want to introduce Tomas Golden-Rosena as well as Robert Eastlin to this conversation. Topic today is taking a look at the generational changes and shifts that are happening within the broader automation and imaging market. And joining into this conversation is Robert Eastlin. If you've been in the machine vision market in North America or in Central and South America, you're probably familiar with GrafTech Imaging, and Robert in particular. He's been around this industry for decades. I've worked with him for years across many different projects and many different types of opportunities. Relatively new to this industry is Tomas. He and I met at the Zebra global sales kickoff meetings that happened earlier this year, and we started having a conversation, and I was asking him his impressions about being in the machine business, and particularly what he's learned in the 5 years-ish that he's been part of this industry. So Robert, Tomas, welcome to this conversation.
Thank you, Matt.
Fantastic. Yeah, so Robert, I'll start with you. You've had your business, I think, 3 decades, if I'm not mistaken.
Almost, yeah.
Almost 3 decades. Okay, sure. So what have you seen in this industry over the time that you've been owner and president of GrafTech? What are some of the trends or changes that you've recognized during this time?
I think the variety and the number of customers searching for solutions with machine vision has proliferated. Years back, there was a great deal of hesitation or even awareness amongst customers that there was something called machine vision, right? They may have never even thought of it as a solution. Today, it seems to be one of the first things customers look to do is to find a machine vision solution for their inspection. Other big changes have been the cost of the materials. For example, when I began all those years ago, a 1.4 megapixel camera was over $10,000.
Yeah.
So the cost of the equipment comes down to, today you can buy the camera like that, or 20 megapixel camera for what, $500 less?
Yeah.
The computing power that we had available to us 30 years ago was what, a 90 megahertz CPU?
Yeah.
A few megabytes of RAM available on the machine. Today, my little iPhone here has so much more power than any of the systems that we were working with back then that it's night and day. I mean, there's no comparisons. So there's the cost. The algorithms have advanced. We have artificial intelligence, deep learning today to work with. We had thoughts of those things back then, but it was more of a science fiction than reality. Today, well, you can't even, it's everywhere, right? It's in my cell phone.
It is, yeah.
We use these algorithms for image processing. It's a different world. So.
Yeah, and then on the flip side of that, we have Tomas, who's probably grown up in an age where your cell phone has a 20 megapixel camera, or it has 3 cameras, and you're working off of a compute platform that just continues to evolve and get faster and better and more cost effective. So Tomas, you kind of share your perspective. How have you leveraged your understanding of technology, and how have you adapted that into your career in sales and application development within the machine vision market?
Yeah, so I think the biggest, and I'm going to call it generational advantage, has been that I've grown up, as you mentioned, if not with all the technology that we have right now already available, but gradually increasing as I got older. And so, we went from having cell phones that had, like Robert said, a small megapixel camera into having what we have today, right? And my career and, whether it has been educational and now professional, has grown steadily with those technological advances. So in the past 5 years that I've been at GrafTech, the pace at which the machine vision solutions are evolving and the pace at which the technology becomes available has increased dramatically. And so, for me, the biggest thing, especially over the past 5 years, has been not only remaining, I would say, current with the tech trends that we're seeing and with the tools that are available, but understanding that we still need to leverage the previous 30 years worth of machine vision experience that we had before. And so marrying both the advances in technology without losing sight of the basics and the fundamentals of machine vision has been the biggest thing for me over the past 5 years.
Yeah, one of the things, Robert, you kind of sparked the memory when you were talking a few minutes ago. I was at one of the West Coast machine vision shows probably 7 or 8 years ago. I think it was the Advanced Robotics and Machine Vision show in San Jose. And I sat through some of the presentations that were being shared by some of the students from some of the local colleges, and most of some of the advancements that they were sharing that was coming out of their research was around the AI space, primarily using cloud compute and large banks of images to do processing and create a system that would automatically categorize a set of images based upon this training model. And it was at that point where I realized that this industry was going to have a massive shift and change, and that the software, cloud, and AI, deep learning, machine learning really was a topic that was being presented most back then, was going to have a monumental shift and change in this market. I'd love to get both of your feedback. Robert, first, how have you seen this come into the industry, and what are customers asking about? And then, as a follow-up, Tomas, how are you seeing AI and machine learning across some of your customers as well?
So when I think about how things are different today, right, with the AI, the deep learning, setting aside the improvements in hardware that compute power that allowed these things to function, you have a situation where before, the days gone by, and you remember these days, where we would usually look at a project and ask ourselves, can it be done, right? It was that, can this project, this requirement even be satisfied with an infinite amount of money being thrown at the project, right? Today, though, we don't ask ourselves that question, can it be done? It's more, can it be done at the appropriate cost for the customer? Because we now have the tools available to separate objects from their background, to deal with very complex situations that we didn't have all those years back. So it's a different thought process. It's more of, let's get this done, not can it be done? Sure.
Yeah. Good. Tomas, what are some of your impressions? How are you seeing kind of the evolution of some of this technology being applied into customers and applications?
Yeah, I think to echo a bit of what Robert is saying, I think we've gone from customers asking for requirements that, even 5 years ago seemed unreasonable in terms of what we could do. And then, with the rise, we're going to call it the rise of AI, all of a sudden we're not passing on those opportunities, but rather we are thinking about using AI to solve these complex projects that before we wouldn't even entertain. And, from the customer perspective, you have, of course, this set of customers that they're startups, or they're, new products, and they've developed their product with AI alongside their processes, and they understand the capabilities and the limitations. the systems. And so they'll come to you and say, hey, I'd like to build a vision system. I'd like to include AI on it. Sometimes required, sometimes not required. But then you also have these large portion of customers that have had vision systems for 25 years with limitations, and that are now reaching to us and saying, hey, how can I modernize my vision systems? How can I integrate AI and deep learning into my processes? Whether it is using deep learning OCR to simplify, visual processes and things like that. But we're seeing more and more that sort of customers that are either machine vision experts or automation experts, and now see the advantages of incorporating AI and modernizing their systems.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting because I've been speaking with a number of customers recently, trying to get their insights into kind of what they see out in the future. And a common conversation that I've had with really large companies is, 5 years ago, I think most manufacturers would have been very hesitant to leverage the cloud in their manufacturing, in their operations, for a couple of different reasons. One is latency, two is security, three, there really wasn't a lot of solutions out there. Now, most customers that I'm talking to are looking towards the cloud for a number of different types of reasons. One is because some of the tools that are available are very interesting to their operations, not just machine vision, but just automation in general. And two, I see a lot of companies really wanting to experiment. They look at, labor shortages, they look at their supply chain, and the thought that I see now in customers is, how do we innovate our operations? Where are there points for us to really push the boundaries of what we do to increase our velocity, to make better products, to improve our supply chain? And so that's driving a lot of innovation in our industry. Bringing that topic kind of full circle, we're starting to see 3D really kind of hit its stride in terms of like really broad adoption. Yeah, 3D's been in the market for years, but it's starting to really kind of accelerate the pace at which customers are starting to adopt it, because I think it's getting less expensive, it's getting easier to use. Some of the resolution capability is starting to open up new applications. I wanted to get your thoughts in terms of kind of the 3D market and what customers are looking at innovating. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are customers saying about their level of innovation around some of this technology, 3D, etc.?
Well, first, for 3D in general allows you to detect, solve problems that you couldn't have done with a 2D camera very reliably. And so I'm thinking of some of my automotive customers who will now first turn to a 3D camera before not even considering a 2D camera, which leads to a bit of hilarity where they could have just used a 2D camera, but now they want the assurance that from the 3D, they feel more assured that the results they are seeing are real.
Yeah.
With the 3D camera.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. As opposed to where we're dealing with the surface geometry of a part from a 2D perspective and trying to gather information, relying on the geometry of the lighting, etc., to get that information. So 3D has, again, with the speed that's available for image processing, 3D is much more interesting these days than it was years back. And the variety of solutions from triangulation to stereo, structured lighting solutions, all being available, the cost being more reasonable these days, the speed at which these images can be acquired at growing in leaps and bounds. Just thinking about what Graphic is doing today in terms of systems integration, I think most of the projects we're working on right now involve 3D as part of the solution.
Yeah, and I can, on that, it's one of these things where working at a company that has both, people like myself who have been there for 5 years or so, and then having industry veterans, it leads to interesting conversations, because like Robert is mentioning, some of our customers jump to 3D first, and that tends to be my view of things at times too, right? We have this complex problem, or the customer is trying to measure something, and Robert will come to me, or one of our more seasoned engineers will come to me, and their first thought is 2D camera with a telecentric lens, and let's measure and do everything.
Sure.
Where in my mind I'm just going, well, we could just use a 3D sensor and be done with it, Sure. And so it's the hilarity of both answers being correct.
Yes.
But having two completely different approaches to the same problem, it's of course a lot of fun, right? And that's the best part about machine vision. I think that, with every project being different, it's really hard for people that have personalities where they'll get tired of the same thing every day, to get bored. And, that's my case. And so when we look at all these applications, like Robert mentions, at Graphtec, we talk to our commercial customers who have different projects every day. And then we have our internal integration projects, all using different technologies, all leveraging 3D. And so, when you look at that market and you see what happens to us internally, I can only imagine, the level of depth that 3D is going to have into our market, and the impact that it's going to have over the next decade, where definitely applications will head that way.
Yeah, it's interesting. Pointing out the fact that both solutions are correct, but coming at it from different perspectives. And I think that's just, in general, people have their experiences and knowledge, and continue to leverage that in terms of their problem solving. But it's also good to have a fresh perspective brought in, new eyes, etc. So I think that's all good. So Tomas, I wanted to get your thoughts on how does this industry, and I'll just use automation in general, how does this industry reach out to and recruit kind of that new or next generation of professionals, engineers, salespeople, applications engineers, system integrators? What sparked your interest, and how do we find more people like you?
Yeah, so we're going through this right now internally, right? And hiring for machine vision engineers is not the easiest thing in the world. There aren't a lot of new grads who are either interested or familiar with what machine vision is. And that, we always joke that I'm the youngest person in the room by, a factor of 20 years usually. And it just has to do with the fact that it's difficult to bring people without them having prior knowledge about what we're doing. Yeah. And, for me, I have an engineering background. I actually applied when I joined Graphtec. My intention was to do development, and then quickly during the interview process realized that I could leverage my personal skills with what machine vision was in terms of sales. And that's because I think there's going to be a shift, and I talk to some of my younger colleagues about this a lot. And it's for decades, if not for hundreds of years, salespeople were selling consumer products. You didn't need to know how the refrigerator worked. You were just selling a refrigerator. But that has changed drastically. And in the world of machine vision, we're selling complex solutions that require in-depth technical knowledge. So, engineers need to be ready to answer those questions, that, put your sales hat and be able to answer difficult questions from customers. And so I think that as machine vision grows, becomes more mainstream, more people see automation as part of their everyday life, not just this thing that they see on TV. They'll definitely become more familiar with it during college, early in their careers, and it'll bring this stream of young, talented engineers into the industry, which will in turn, of course, improve the solutions that we see every day, and grow our industry drastically.
Yeah, well, we'll certainly use this podcast and discussion as an opportunity to cast a wide net out there and help kind of showcase what some of the opportunities look like within this market. So, two final questions. Kind of Robert, for you, what do you see being kind of the next big thing within the machine vision market? What are you particularly excited about? What gets you excited and motivated each day when you get up and step into the office?
Well, I think going back to what we have available today, the
Mm.
new tools, 3D, deep learning, better algorithms overall, more compute power, is that we're able to find new applications to work on, things that couldn't have been done before. So what makes me excited is that we
Oh,
can
sure.
now tackle problems that hitherto, I wouldn't have even have dreamt of tackling all those years back.
Yeah.
And that makes me excited because you hear from customers that you might even have spoken with 20 years ago. If they're still, they haven't retired yet, right? But you hear, they're like, hey, do you think we can do this now? And you go, oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, I think it's worth looking at today, right? That's exciting. I mean, to be able to actually solve a problem that that you remember being impractical to solve, just saying, yeah, we can do that. That's a fun thing. So that gets me
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah, plus it's rewarding to be able to help your customers achieve things that that help improve their production, their quality, the velocity of their factory, whatever. And so yeah, it's very rewarding to be able to provide those types of solutions.
And as far as technology goes, I'm very much interested to see how compact the solutions can become, right?
Mm.
We had smart cameras. Now on a chip, on the sensor itself, in the layers behind the sensor, to see the computing power exists there. To have, when I remember a machine vision system taking up most of a desk, to now being able to hold the whole system in the palm of your hand.
Mm-hmm.
That's something to be excited about.
Yeah, for sure. And Tomas, kind of what do you see, out for the next, say maybe 5 to 10 years? What do you see in terms of like innovation? What gets you excited?
Yeah, well, I mean, AI, of course, is going to open, a whole range of opportunities. I think we're usually when products become as mainstream as AI is becoming right now. I mean, we're at the earliest stages of what we can do, and people, like we said before, you can have AI applications in the palm of your hand now. It's going to open up whole range of opportunities for machine vision, both because new companies will come out that will develop products that will need to be inspected. And so, machine vision will always have to be there, but also because of the machine vision tools will just become much more sophisticated. So what excites me is that, being early in my career in this industry and looking at the next, 25, 30 years, the rate at which this will change will be dramatic, and I'll get to be part of the ride the whole way and get to experience and help our customers, leverage new technologies every year. And it's just an exciting thing as a young engineer and as a young salesperson to be able to be part of an industry that is ever changing and evolving.
Yeah, excellent. Well, Robert and Tomas, thank you very much for being part of this conversation. I think it's highlighted for me a couple different things to think about within this industry. One is just the rapid change of pace of how technology continues to evolve. And I typically reflect, towards the end of the year, back on the year, and to think, wow, just the innovation that's happened just in the last 12 months always amazes me. And I always think, man, there's no better time to be in this market and industry. And then next year, it's even better and better and better. So I want to thank both of you for being part of this conversation and bringing your perspectives on automation in the machine vision market. So again, thank you for your time. And I want to conclude by inviting those of you watching or listening to this podcast to visit zebra.com where we have a number of other conversations in this Industrial Automation Insider podcast series, where you can listen to customers and partners and Zebra salespeople and engineers share their perspective on what they see happening within the automation and machine vision market. So I'm Matt Van Bogart signing off. Thank you again, Robert and Tomas.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah.